Good day, beautiful soul family, and welcome back to On Another Level. And so this video, I must warn you, you may not be interested in this video. This video is for the enthusiast of the Bible. And so there are many, there are many things in the Bible, and with this time frame, it's about, revelations. It's about the prophets. It's about, the cycles and the seasons and what to look out for and what to apply in your life. Now, what's so interesting, and this I believe is very important because this is my second time doing this video. But I think it's very important because I wanted to talk about, I mentioned it in the other video about Leah. And how it really is important to understand about Leah especially, okay? And so I just wanna get into it. But if you're not at all interested in that, I encourage you to look at other videos, whether mine or somebody else's, okay? And take care. So here we have. What's so marvelous about this is that when I was younger, I wanted to be an archaeologist, and I wanted to be a newscaster, and I wanted to be so many other things. But some things I weren't able to do, some things I were able to do. Like I was able to travel around the world. I was being in the military. I was able to meet different people and different cultures. And I still want to travel around the world, even the more. But what's so interesting is that with the Bible, I can be not only a newscaster by just expressing and sharing a lovely message, but I can be an archaeologist and get into it. And really, as I go through the pages, it's like I am digging up so much information. And this doesn't have to be about anybody. This is not about the detriment, but this is about really getting into the Bible and seeing the beauty that is in there. As mentioned, it's a love story, yes, but it's also about our ancestry. This is an inheritance. See, back in the past, they passed on legacy by sharing the accounts of the Bible, and it went from person to person to person, generation after generation after generation. And in having a relationship with Divine Spirit, it's not only just paying attention to the information that is in there found in Revelations and in the New Testament, but as you see here, I'm going to be talking about Genesis chapter 29 and so on and so forth. Now it gets deeper, I think, because I like to go down to the core of it, and it's about generational curses. It's about holding yourself accountable and understanding why different energies continue forth. And so as I see here with Leah, here we got Leah, we got Rachel, and we got the father of Leah and Rachel, and his name is Laban. And then of course we have Jacob. Now Jacob decided to flee. He decided to go on this quest and this journey because he was actually fleeing away from what he and his mother had got together to do, to bring discord in order for a destiny, a blessing that was to go to Esau, okay? And anyways, let's go deeper, okay? And so here we have Jacob. Now in Genesis, now what's so interesting, as a consultant, they say, make sure all of your information is towards the end. Like, you're going to put information throughout the whole thing. That's part of your presentation. But towards the end is where they really are going to remember a lot. And the thing about when I see the Bible, it says all throughout the Bible, it's not just about the New Testament, which is important too, but the whole everything. As I see the Bible as frequencies and vibrations and energy. And this energy is what helps to heal, set straight, help to bring you freedom with knowledge. Okay? And as we know more and more about our ancestry, we're able to be more confident. We're able to be more loving. And we're able to move, finagle through life with wisdom. And so what's so interesting in the beginning, you know, when we think about Genesis, we think about the creation, but there's so much more going on. So here we have in Genesis chapter 29, you know, and it talks about, how, how he meets Rachel, Leah, and Laban, okay? And so when Jacob saw Rachel, he was very much attracted. His beauty in the eyes of the beholder, right? And so he said that he agreed that he would work for Laban for 7 years. And because of his attraction for Rachel, those 7 years didn't seem like anything. Here it says that in verse 20, it says, and Jacob served 7 years for Rachel, and they seemed unto him but a few days. And that's how much he was very much attracted. Now, excuse me, this attraction wasn't, I believe this attraction wasn't just physical, but it states here in verse 16, it says, Laban had 2 daughters. The name of the elder was Leah, and the name of the younger was Rachel. And, we just see how men, they are more attracted to younger women. I mean, it is what it is, right? And so now here in 17, it says, Leah was tender-eyed, but Rachel was beautiful and well-favored. And so when I think about tender-eyed, I looked it up, and you can see it in different ways, okay? Beauty is in the eye of the beholder, right? Look into the windows of the soul. And so according to the soul, Leah is beautiful. Now you can also look at it in another sense, in which you can say physically, Leah, who was the older sibling or sister, say, why was she not married as yet? Okay? And then also you have to say, well, okay, tendered eye could have been a lazy eye, a weak eye. Okay? Either way, Jacob was more attracted to Rachel. Okay? And so he worked for the 7 years, felt like a few days. But the Divine Spirit, again, brings me into the area. Right? So here we have a sister who's older. And if she has a lazy eye, or maybe she's just beautiful on the inside and it's not really showing on the outside, right? She's wishing that someone would work hard to marry her, to be interested in her. And so all of these things is going on, Divine Spirit was, it's just so interesting, because I would see different things that would just pop up, and I'm like, ooh, wow, I have a very intriguing mind. And so I love to learn. And so I'm looking at these things about the womb, and so on and so forth, and we're going to get into that. But as the Divine Spirit puts me into that situation where I'm seeing 2 siblings. One is attractive on the inside, and one is not attractive as much. Again, really, it's beauty in the eye of the beholder. And so here we see how the reason why Jacob thought it was just like a few days is because his interactions were very much so with Rachel, and it wasn't as much with Leah. And so we see how things of the past came to bite him, in in this situation, because he was all reared up to marry Rachel until he saw that it was not Rachel, it was Leah. And so he even went to Laban and he said it was according to the customs that Leah would be, the older sibling, sister, would be married first before the younger. And so we see how that switcheroo took place, right? What happened with Jacob and Esau? Wasn't there a switcheroo? So anyways, it's just so interesting how energies come to play, right? So then we see here that he was like, he worked some more, right? So in 30 it talks about, okay, he worked some more, and then he gave his daughter Leah a maid, and he gave Rachel a maid as well. It says in verse 29, and Laban gave to Rachel. So verse 28, it says, and Jacob did so and fulfilled her week, and he gave him Rachel his daughter to wife. Okay, so let's go before that. Okay, let's go to verse 25. And it said, it came to pass that in the morning, behold, it was Leah. And he said to Laban, what is this thou hast done unto me? Did not I serve with thee for Rachel? Wherefore then hast thou beguiled me? And Laban said, I must not be so done in our country to give the younger before the firstborn. Fulfill her week, and we will give thee this also for the service which thou shalt serve with me yet 7 other years. And Jacob did so, and fulfilled her week, and he gave him Rachel his daughter to wife also. And Laban gave to Rachel his daughter Bilhah, and his handmaid, to be her maid. And he went also unto Rachel, and he loved also Rachel more than Leah, and served with him yet 7 other years. And when the Lord saw that Leah was hated, he opened up her womb, but Rachel was barren. And so it's just so interesting, really. All of this is interesting because really, when you think about it, as Jacob was working for 7 years for Laban to have the hand of Rachel, he wasn't even thinking about Leah. Okay? His tenderness was not to Leah. It was to Rachel. And he was working towards that, totally focused, setting his intentions and everything. Okay? But there were certain things that was done in the past that came into play. And so here we see, Leah, I'm sure, didn't want to be in that situation. But she was obedient. And in her being obedient, she was put into a predicament. And that predicament caused her to not be loved. As a matter of fact, it wasn't about just dislike. It was hated. It says, and when the Lord saw that Leah was hated, there's different levels. There's, I don't like you very much, that's that dislike. But when you're hated, okay, and God sees it, God sees everything, but God sees the hatred, that's a bit much, especially when a person didn't even want to be put in that situation, right? And so what happened is that divine spirit had opened up the womb. Now, interesting enough, in order for something to be opened, it had to once been closed. So maybe into a degree, I'm getting from here, maybe or maybe not, is that Leah's womb was barren. But because of the hatred that was shown upon her, he opened her womb, and he made Rachel's womb barren. Which means that Rachel had a fertile womb. But because of the hatred that was shown to Leah, put forth a change. And here is so interesting, and I felt so bad for her because I'm an empath, really, especially. And it says, and Leah conceived and bare a son, and she called his name Reuben. For she said, surely the Lord hath looked upon my affliction. Now therefore my husband will love me. And so, that's so sad, because there are women in this world who feel like, well, I'm having his child. Surely he would love me, right? But then the love is not there, I mean, that's just another video, but it's so sad. But that this is her feelings, right? This is what was going on with her. My computer's acting up. And so anyways, she was going through afflictions. More than likely she was praying, okay? And then she conceived again, Simeon. And what's so interesting, it says, and she conceived again and bare a son, and said, because the Lord hath heard that I was hated. So it continued forth. And so when, as mentioned, we talked about the workings of a narcissist and the workings of a man of God. The workings of what lust brings about and the workings of what love brings about. And we see how it's just about so many things. It's so much deeper about the energies of how certain things come into play as a child is being conceived, And so we can see the harshness of the brothers towards Joseph, okay? The firstborn of Jacob and Rachel. But anyways, here it goes again. And she conceived again and bare a son, and she said, now this time will my son now this time will my husband be joined unto me, because I have borne him 3 sons. Therefore was his name called Levi. And then she, again, now before Judah, because here she says, and in verse 35 she says, and she conceived again and bore a son. And she said, now will I praise the Lord. Therefore she called his name Judah, and left barren. So what's so interesting also about Leah is that we see that she's gone through a lot. But what's so interesting, and I've been saying interesting a lot because it really is interesting, but her 4th son is Judah. And from her 4th son, what's so beautiful is we have King David, we have King Solomon, King of Judah, we have King Jesus, King Yeshua. And it is so interesting. After that, there's Issachar, which is the 6th son. There's Zebulun, which is the 5th son is Issachar. The 6th son is Zebulun. And then her 7th child is Dinah. Now, there's a lot of stories, and I've been doing the research, and it stated that because of the prophecy, when certain things, as we see about Leah, certain things she did undergo, and yes, her wound was blessed, but there are certain things that she needed to heal within herself, because it stated that she knew about the prophecy of the 12 tribes. And when you don't heal, like let's say the Divine Spirit is showing me about an arm, and you can do 2 comparisons, where an arm that is healed and you're following the instructions and everything, and then you have another arm that has not healed so much. It's healed, but it's distorted. And so when you don't follow the healing instructions, it will come distorted. Even though Divine Spirit had brought forth a solution to rectify a lot that was going on between the trio of Leah, Rachel, and Jacob, Leah still didn't heal that much, okay, emotionally. And she knew about the prophecy of Jacob having 12 tribes, right? And she knew that if she had the 8th son, then somehow, because they also had the 2 maids, and the 2 maids had 2 sons each, Okay, and so, but anyways, the last son was, or the last child was Dinah. Okay, and finally, when that took place, Rachel was remembered, and she gave birth to Joseph and Benjamin. And the thing about it is that God is indeed present in our life, bringing forth solutions. And you know, sometimes the story gets overlooked, sometimes it may not get overlooked, but there's just so much saturation of information that can help us in our everyday life. You know, one thing is that God is always present in our life. Greater is divine spirit that is within us than that of which is in the world. And even though there were, she went through afflictions and hatred, and there were certain things that she needed to heal emotionally wise, because she tried so, I don't want to say she tried so hard, but she prayed that she can have more sons. Okay, because not so much that she wanted it, but each time it was like, now he's going to love me, now he's going to stay with me, you know, and that is very unhealthy. But anyways, the fourth son is Judah. And I love it where it says here that I praise you, you know, and Judah is a tribe of praise. Okay, the thing about it is that she wanted sons, more sons, for a reason, and it didn't really have to do with love. Okay, and anyway, from the fourth son, which is Judah, as mentioned, we have King David, we have King Solomon, and later on we have King Yeshua. And when I think about the number 4, you know, number 4 is about stability. Okay, and as we look into our life where it's in a disarray, you know, divine spirit brings forth stability, which brings forth transformations, you know, because when things are out of whack, it's because there's no balance. But when it comes back into whack because of solutions, I don't want to say into whack, but when it comes back into alignment, we have solutions, we have change, we have transformation. And so with the line of Judah, with her son Judah, okay, and it was the energy of praise, right? Of pure joy. And it's because of Yeshua where we can give forth that praise. Okay? And so, again, I hope in some way, shape, or form this has helped you to, if anything, you know, for you to get into the Bible and for you to see about the truths that is in the Bible. Taking a nice adventure. That's what I'm talking about. It's just, this is why it's so important to understand these different lessons in the Bible, because it helps you to understand those different facets and taking those different steps, those small steps in your life. Okay? And so what was so interesting, however, is, so as I mentioned in another video, I was looking at different things about, I was just drawn to these different trees and how they looked, and these different flowers. And these different flowers were just, some look like bees, some look like butterflies. There is this flower called Narelava. And Narelava that is found somewhere in the Sri Lanka, Himalayan area, in Indiana area, or India. And what's so interesting is that this flower looks like a naked woman. Now I'll put it in the description box. Now the lady is either covering up her areas or just one area. And it's true, these flowers are for real. And I'll put it in the description box. But interesting enough to note, you may say, well, why am I bringing this up? Well, I'm bringing this up because here it talks about mandrakes. So I looked up mandrakes, and mandrakes is thought to have magical powers. It was like a narcotic. It was more like for love. And so, interesting enough, I don't know how true this is, but these mandrakes usually are found in Palestine area. And so when they pull up the mandrakes, you would hear some type of screaming. I don't know how true that is. I don't know. But what I saw in the Bible, and interesting enough, these mandrakes actually look like men. So we got roots that look like men and flowers that look like naked women. It's just, you know, it's really mind-blowing. And so, but anyways, what I thought to be interesting is that Leah's son Reuben had brought back mandrakes. And what's so interesting is that these mandrakes were seen as currency. Here it says in chapter 30 verse 15, and she said unto her, is it a small matter that thou hast taken my husband? Now what's so interesting is that Leah was the first wife to Jacob. But when Jacob married Rachel, it seemed like both of them were showing her hatred to a degree. Like she was just second fiddle, you know? And who wants to live a life like that, right? But it says, and she said, verse 15, and chapter 30, verse 15 says, and she said unto her, is it a small matter that thou hast taken my husband? And wouldest thou take away my son's mandrakes also? And Rachel said, therefore she shall lie with thee tonight for thy son's mandrakes. So they were, you know, here it says, and Jacob came out of the field in the evening, and Leah went out to meet him and said, thou must come in unto me, for surely I have hired thee with my son's mandrakes. And she lay with her, and he lay with her that night. And God hearkened unto Leah, and she conceived, and bare Jacob the 5th son. And after the 6th son, then it says in verse 22, and God remembered Rachel, and God hearkened unto her, and opened her womb. Digging deep is so interesting because there's just so many different facts in here. I absolutely love it, and I encourage you to look into the Bible. What I'm reading from is Genesis chapter 29 and 30, and just digging in and reading. What's so interesting, beautiful soul family, is that in each of these situations, as brought out already, God is indeed present. And as God looks onto our life, and as we call out to God, Divine Spirit, please help. Bring forth solutions in our life. And that is what Divine Spirit does. Brings forth solutions. Brings forth clarity. And this is a beautiful story about Leah. A beautiful story about how in the midst of being afflicted and hated, beautiful things came through. I hope this helped out in some way, shape, or form. Again, this is not going to be interesting to a lot of people, you know, but the Bible has got so many accounts, and it's not just the end, but it's also the beginning, especially in understanding the bloodline of Judah. Okay, and until we meet again, have a beautiful and wonderful day. Namaste.